questions or needs help with forms, the first semester reports are due by the end of January, so that's just 10 days away. And I know we did a whole presentation the last few times on how to use the new PDF forms and those kind of things. If anyone has questions, email me is probably the best way. I can either send you the instructions or walk you through it. That's perfectly fine. For those that did send the PDF forms for your course registrations, you should have received a set back from me with the approvals on it, and save that one. That's the one you use now to update and send your first semester back. So if you didn't get that or don't know what I'm talking about, again, email me and we can take care of that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, just fill out the first semester report in your book that you have and mail that in. That's always a way of doing it. If you don't have a book and don't know what to do as far as those things, again, email me, call me. Our members go to our website, wcfs.edu, and on the top left there's a members tab. Hit the members tab. To get into the next sections, I think that's where we're trying to start a blog. That's where a blog button is, and members forms and docs and all those kind of things. If you click on member forms and docs, then a little thing will come up with password. Okay, for anyone watching this video, they'll get it, but it's really hard. It's all caps, WCFS. You got it? Okay, so I tried a complicated one early, and that, yeah. I'm like, it's just our families getting on here, so don't make it difficult. So, and then you can have access to the forms. And so if you need to print out a new booklet and want to hand write it, they're there to print. The elementary, junior high, high school, also the handbooks and some of the other school profile and other important documents are there for your access. So you can get to those things that way as well. So I'm trying to get you guys more familiar with that, so that way you can have everything accessible to you. I'm trying to get more and more things online. So one opportunity that has come up on the missionary front, the Floyds are a family that are missionaries to, I'm not exactly sure which area of Mexico, but and it isn't stated here, but there's a couple on their team that is in need of someone to assist them with their children. So this is going to be someone that's older, obviously can babysit and watch children, homeschool them while they're gone for a couple weeks at a time in the mission area, to be able to watch over their children, handle those type of things. So if you have a young person, probably young lady, but that's interested, doesn't have to be out of high school, but more than likely out of high school already or in that last year, that can be responsible and do those type of things. If you have someone that's interested in something like that, let me know. I'll get you the information that you need and put you in touch with them. And they are interested in, a tryout period for the candidate, like a 2 to 3 week trip, kind of like a mission trip to try out to see if that's something that would fit for both parties, and then possibly a long-term type of thing to assist them and to help. So if you have someone that's mission-minded and has a gap year or something like that, that might be of interest to you, let me know. I will get the information to you. So as far as the rest of the things coming up, for those participating in graduation, the graduation, believe it or not, is coming up. It's June 3rd, I believe. June 3rd, and it's going to be held this year again at White Marsh Baptist Church. And so the required senior class meeting is next Wednesday at the workshop, 12 o'clock in the Walkersville office. So if you have a graduate that's interested in participating, and for whatever reason you're not able to make it, then contact me directly, and we'll work with you on that. The ski trip is coming up. I haven't heard a lot of feedback, and I know it's warmer right now, but next week it's supposed to be cold again, back below freezing, I think starting Wednesday or Thursday. And the trip is on the 2nd, so that should still give enough time. They were fully open, 100% open last week. I'm not sure now with the warmer weather exactly what they are, but again, if we have a full week of freezing temps at night, then they'll have the slopes back to good shape. So please let me know if your family is interested. And again, you can pick up a form here today. I just emailed yesterday, so the form is attached to the email, and it was also in your mailing last month. So that information. The spring testing forms just went out in the mailing as well. So if you have a child that you would like testing, whether it's a Becky test or the Iowa test of basic skills, that test will be on March 8th here at the office, and also on the Eastern Shore at the Sunnyside Alliance Church. So that the ITBS is for students normally in 3rd through 9th grade. That is a requirement for our 8th graders. That is our high school entrance requirement. Don't worry, there's no pass-fail mark. We just want them to take the test so that you can see the results and we can see the results and help you as they're entering high school to plan properly with their strengths and weaknesses, and help you set their high school focus. So, and also on that day, for parents of new high schoolers, or if it's been a long time, we would recommend that the parents attend the high school orientation on that day, and it is required for new high school parents. So it goes over all of the credit requirements, credits to graduate, what's the difference between a high school course, how do you keep track of things, logging, and all those type of things. So that's a very important meeting for parents of new high schoolers. That'll be on March 8th as well. So the rest of the events and reminders are in your folder. Those are the more important ones that are more timely, that I wanted everyone to see. Please pay attention to two things. One, if you did not receive the email that I sent out yesterday, I need your proper email address, or check your spam folder and get us out of there, because we do put attachments on the emails, because we've been attaching the newsletter every month, and then ski trip forms or other important forms that you may need. So your spam folders like to grab anything that's sent to a lot of people with an attachment. So if you did not receive an email sent from info@wcfs.edu yesterday, then I either don't have your proper address or it's in your spam folder. So for everyone hearing me, please check that. That's one of the best ways to communicate, and to communicate with you. The other one is we still send the old-fashioned paper mailing out that, yes, we know it gets thrown in a corner, but don't throw it in a corner. At least open it and look at it before you throw it in a corner, to make sure that there's not important things in there, like a billing statement or a portfolio review or those type of things. So those are ways of communicating with you, and so please pay attention to that. I understand you don't have time to read everything the second you open the mail, but at least sort it to make sure if there's something important in there to take care of. Okay, that's all I have, and Gary is now going to share giving a state of the ministry report.
Well, thank you, Brad. By the way, thank you all for coming here. I know now that we live stream, it's a huge temptation to stay home. Last week, we had a brand new mom that didn't get on our email notice, and she showed up all by her lonesome. So I think she's watching. Hi, Mary. Talk about feeling bad, missing that little point. So just so you know, the when you come here in person, you're going to get some things that you won't get on live stream. And so in the afternoon sessions, I want you to understand Becky's session is not going to be recorded. Now, it's being conducted. I think Brad forgot to mention it. It's being held. It's not being held here. It's being held over at the school classroom, and there's plenty of seats. And so my session here, which is going to be some more hard practical stuff, is going to be recorded and posted on live stream. So if you're wondering which one you should go to, Becky's will not be recorded. She's smiling. She's so happy. She just loves not being recorded. So just a little practical administrative note. So we're in our 34th year. Can you believe it? And this is a report that I'm adapting for today that we gave to the board, the school and the church board, a couple weeks ago. But 3 pictures on the screen, sort of a 3-point summary. We've been a ministry that's been multiplying, hopefully, godly seed. Now the picture on the screen, I forgot to explain it to the board. Picture on the screen is just one of Nana's, you all know Nana, one of Nana's daughter's children and their spouses and their children. And they came to our house in that big bus at Christmas time. So we think Nana has well over 111 grandchildren, counting the greats. Her 3 daughters had 33 children among them, and she had 2 sons that had another 6 children. So anyway, but one generation passes the baton on to the next generation, and in reality, it's hard for me to believe, but my baby is 21. What happened through the years? So it's a wonderful privilege that I am getting to walk alongside my children as they are raising their family and homeschooling, and being a part of that is such a treasure. And then mentoring, which, see, Becky with her 8th birthday. If you're dyslexic, you read it backwards. And modeling, that's a picture of Richard Scott, actually, at the Department of Education. So I just want to quickly go through just a few things for perspective. On the last session, I talked about the UDL mechanism for instruction. That's a coined phrase, universal design for learning. So what's happening is, as education professionals codify certain kinds of things, all of this diversity training and education is going to be done along the universal design for learning, which means they're going to try to invade every avenue of information instruction to permeate the understanding. And of course, they're primarily interested in the new classifications of society that they're wanting to make sure every child is fully equipped to participate in the democracy, being capable of respecting and accepting and perhaps experimenting with other identities. So the top of the screen has treasuring God's design for the family. That has been our motto our whole time. And what it amounts to is this: it's a simple cognitive perspective. God made the family. He designed it. And I find it huge that an education culture that doesn't believe in an authoritative God, that they would use terms like design. Because it betrays the fundamental reality. You can't escape design everywhere we have in our culture. But children were designed to learn. Families were designed to be the environment for children to learn in. And it's imperative that we understand, while we work with you directly to establish curriculum for your children, we work with you not to take our curriculum and impose it on your family, but we work with you so that you, through prayer, through humility, through seeking the Lord, can discern what kind of training that the Lord wants you to bring forward for your children and your family. And the thing that we're most concerned about is not that you turn your home into a model UDL classroom. And I am the organized classroom model and the instruction elements related to that, they have a lot of validity, especially in the classroom. But what's important to understand is the advantage that you and I have that we can bring to the table in terms of instruction is the advantage of faith, whereby we learn to make the most of our home. Now, over the years of home instruction ministry, 34 years, I'm just going to be honest. Wow, it's so difficult for us to pay attention to the value of our home and make the most of it. It's just difficult. Home is a different kind of environment. It's the only environment that is relationship-based instead of performance-based. And yet, when you bring homeschooling into the mix of it, it tends to create some pressure for performance and the whole 9 yards. But I want you to think about, Walkersville's ministry hasn't been so that you would use Bob Jones textbooks. Now, in the beginning, Bob Jones gave us a really good deal, and they were some of the few Christian textbooks on the market, and we made them available if that's what you wanted. But it wasn't our goal to sell Bob Jones textbooks. We don't sell any textbooks now. Too many varieties out there. I think you can get textbooks through us if you work with Brad in terms of going online and getting through our website portal. But the reality is, you are unique and your home is unique, and God wants you to solve the crisis and the problems and the circumstances of your home in a biblical way. And He wants your children to be exposed to that, to learn how to walk in godliness in your home. And the first thing that we do in our home is to value it. Now, I'm not going to say I'll ever do this poll, but it would be interesting to poll all the homeschoolers and just find out how much time parents concentratedly focus on, okay, here's what we are, here's what we have as a home, and here's what we're going to, first place, here's what we're going to present to our children. They're going to get that first, and then we're going to fill in the other things as appropriate around that. It's so easy to look outside the home, to look at a professional education model and think that's what we got to have. It is not what God had in mind. It is not what God had in mind. I remember the very early issue that occurred. How many of you have heard of Raymond Moore? He had books out like School Couldn't Wait and Better Late Than Early and the like. Well, there was a United States Department of Education research done where they tried to see what's the best learning environment for kindergartners. And so they had doctorates, masters, bachelor's degree, and moms with no education at all teach classrooms. What they tried to do was get each child profiled in as similar as possible. Now, no two kids are alike, so you can never really exactly profile your classroom. But they did the experiment, and they were stunned. The more intellectual knowledge you had, the less performance your children had. And the children who performed the best of all were the children who were taught by moms who had no education background at all. And that was the United States Department of Education doing that study. But just think about it for a moment. God invented family. And so you're only going to get a short time, 18 years perhaps, to be family and to influence your children through that family element. And for my wife and I, when we struggled with that, I think it was at the end of our second year of homeschooling, and we realized that we weren't going to cut it in terms of academic prowess. We weren't going to make the cut as far as offering our kids as much as they could get in the Christian school classroom that I taught in. It's just a different environment. They weren't going to get that same cut. And we toyed with the idea of putting our kids back in school. And just because we didn't want to be derelict, delinquent parents. But as we thought about it, part of the vision for me was just simple. Why would it be that the Father in heaven would send his Son on earth and stick him in a home? And the marked testimony of Jesus' life before he began to teach at about age 30, the marked testimony from Luke was, and Jesus went home, this was when he was 12, and he was subject to his parents. And the favor of God and the favor of man was upon him. He grew in stature in favor with God and favor with man. And I just had this little teaser thought to myself. Come on. If the creator of the world could trust a carpenter's home for his kid, the greatest kid ever, can't I show a little bit of faith? So we prayed. We just had a really simple prayer. We said, Lord, I don't have a clue what it is in family that you have for us, for our kids. I mean, I'm not that smart. I don't understand all the universal design for learning that you have invested in the family. But I know one thing, you're God, and you're the creator of the world. Everything I look at that you have done is incredible. It's intensive. It's ingenious. So instead of trusting my stupidity of doubt, I'm going to trust you, who are absolutely worth trusting. And I'm just going to ask you, help us, because we're going to have some low spots in our provision. I'm just going to ask you to fill in those spots. And we got on our knees in the living, we prayed that prayer. But our homeschooling experience from that time forward was just an incredible journey, not of buying the best textbooks that were out there or attending curriculum seminars that interviewed 30 new curriculums that came on the market this year. But it was having a loving Heavenly Father answer our prayer and provide for each individual child different circumstances that gave them opportunities to learn in the unique way that they could learn. And when they left home, they had a heritage where they had learned to pray and have God answer their prayer and provide little unique niches of education. And none of my kids had the same little unique niches. They didn't get to all have the same or do the same. But we had to trust. We had to trust. I remember once at the August conference, we were in the Sunbeam Center that year, and I had the high school group. I'm just going at it, telling you guys to trust the Lord and go to prayer and let God provide for you. And I'm all finished, and as I'm getting down from the podium, I remember, I haven't prayed for my kid. I had a specific child in mind. So I apologized and said, Lord, I haven't prayed for this child yet, but as soon as I get home, I'm going to do it. And when I get to the front of the building, I had a dad step up in front of me and said, hey, I've been thinking about your son, and you're wondering if might have an opportunity for him. And it was the child I was needing to pray for. Before you call, I will answer. So I just want you to understand, talking with my children in hours of crisis and difficulty, where they're despairing and wondering, thinking they're getting the shaft and the world's coming to an end, and being able to tell them, do you remember? Remember when you prayed and God answered and did this? And you just go through the list and you change their discouragement. And what's the crisis that my children often had? It was just comparing themselves to somebody else. They didn't get what so-and-so had or such and such. And they agitate themselves to death. Well, I am still on the first screen, and I better get moving because we got to get Becky up here. But this is Becky's 30th year. And June will be a 30th anniversary. Thank you, Lord. So it's been a privilege and a pleasure. And the amazing thing is we've just had the same understanding hardly without talking to each other, the sense of the word. But Becky's heart's ministry has been to be an encouragement to moms to make the most of your home and make the most of your circumstances, to pray and have God answer prayer. and for your home to be as unique as God has intended it to be, to make the most of that. A couple other things on the screen here. You do have a handout that's black and white, but I'm using the word mentoring, but the reality is that's the nature of home. Home is where you join in together as family and you do things and you accomplish purpose and you transfer skills in the context of meaningful accomplishment, purposefulness, and that's what takes place. And our role as a school, we're wanting to come alongside in ways that we can do that. Most of you know that we're always just a phone call away. If you have any kind of personal need for mentoring, Becky cherishes and relishes the phone calls that she gets to just sit down with you and discuss your family situation and your circumstances and biblical principles and thoughts and processes by which you can have victory in your homeschool situation. We do have this afternoon's workshop is a kind of a reflection in the Becky session of our new workshop approach in the afternoons in the workshop. But I did show that 80 for a reason. Becky's heart's desire has always been to pass on the baton to others, and so we have Mrs. Trecanelli who's joining with Becky in just some of that mentor sharing in the afternoons, and she's going to be doing that today. But the bottom line is the church is made up of people caring for each other. And so we're trying to offer that kind of mentoring, and we are looking at ways that we can improve that and increase that. But the bottom line is there's a little bit of a change, and our afternoon sessions are not recorded. You have to be here live to be a part of it. Second thing is the last page of this handout, there's a little letter, something to thoughtfully pray about, but we're wanting to aggressively attempt to seek the Lord to get some husband and wife teams on the school board. We have been a school board of dads for 34 years, and we really want to have that added component of wives, moms on the board. So we're praying, asking the Lord to bring forward some. So we're inviting you to be prayerful about that particular prospect. The desire that we have, you can read it in the letter in terms of the invitation. The desire that we have is just to walk together and to be thoughtful about the mechanisms and the ways that we can encourage one another in the process of treasuring God's design for the families for the next generation. We're also hoping to improve our social media skills in terms of communication, which Brad's got the Facebook website going again. And do you think we'll ever start tweeting, Becky? I don't know. I've had this huge negative thing about tweeting, but who knows? Maybe we'll get 20 million followers. And
I'm personally on Twitter if anybody wants to.
are you? Okay. Okay. Becky's on Twitter. Get her Twitter address. So these are just some of the things that we're trying to improve and do. The reality is media gives you access to people, and it's an amazing thing that through live stream we're able to conduct the seminars that we have around the world, and we have families around the world. We have families that are part of Walkersville in quite a few different countries, and so these are just things of trying to discern. I guess you could say millennials are media mad, and so we're going to try to adapt as we can in a meaningful way that way. The whole discussion on reaching millennials, I don't have time for the whole discussion, but we're seeking to just understand how to respond. It's not that we want to change our message, but we want to make sure that we try to get the message to as many as possible, because God didn't change his design for the family, but we sure have a huge cultural onslaught of negativity after the Christian family, and it's heating up like never before in our days, just before our eyes. We're hoping to offer some consultant-based accountability clinics for struggling students, first immediately here on site and in other sites as the Lord provides. Also, Brad's going to begin, Brad, you didn't mention this, where are you? The date is March, you don't know the date yet. Somewhere in the end of March, we're going to be starting a local, hopefully monthly, Presidential Fitness Day. The local community here, Fort Ritchie, has asked us to head up a program on Fridays for the community. So we're taking that as an open door from the Lord, and that'll be, our accountability clinics will be offered in conjunction with that. We're at the early stage of developing that. And then also PSAT testing, we have some opportunities to share some of our PSAT testing skills. But I missed number one, so I apologize for that. The first item on the list is, this year we're doing something that I feel capable of doing really for the first time since last year's regulatory changes. But the changes of homeschool regulations are clear enough that we feel like we can offer some supervisory to homeschool families who don't necessarily want to be enrolled in the entire program. So the board's approved the process. Is going to be a pilot year. We don't have figured out the actual dollars and cents of it yet, but essentially it'll be a program that if you're not wanting to be part of the full-blown enrollment, there's a way to participate in a controlled, selective mechanism, and the fees will be done in such a fashion that if you select the whole program piecemeal, it'll be a whole lot more expensive than just being enrolled in the program. But if you're wanting to just have a few parts of the program. And part of this, I told the Board of Education that I would do this when they were doing the regulation. And so the ability for us to offer supervision to homeschoolers who aren't enrolled in our program, that's clearly been clarified in the new regulation. And so we're participating in it to help create the emphasis that needs to be made, that the institutions offering supervision need to be legitimate educational institutions who also offer a full-blown academic program, which includes a diploma and the rest. So pray for that. You'll hear about it as it unfolds, but that has been decided upon. That will do it, and the price and all that will get out by the end of hopefully by the middle of the semester, at least by the end of April or May, probably April. Next question, comment, modeling. One of the things that we've been blessed is just by getting ahead of the curve and understanding education law and family philosophy, we've been able to blend the two together in a way that is recognizable in academic circles, and so we're grateful for that. I did have a trip to the Philippines, and people were wondering, well, how come I'm not doing a presentation on the Philippines? It was a great trip. The school there is astonishing. They have 1,500 students and 22 countries, and they've asked our board to please allow one of their foreign countries to come under Walkersville separately. So we're supposed to be considering opening up a branch in Dubai, which is Muslim area for expatriates in Dubai. But while I was there, I'll just say it was rewarding to me to just see the spiritual emphasis in the Philippine homeschool movement, and similar to what it was in Korea. They have the vision and the energy, and the particular school that we have sponsored in the Philippines, they've been responsible for working with the government and getting the regulations for homeschooling drawn up in the nation. And while I was there, they were invited by the Department of Education to try to help them come up with a mechanism that homeschooling can be used in some of their remote districts where they simply don't have the capacity to provide education for everybody. They have like 4,000 islands in the Philippines. There's a lot of remote places that they can't meet the educational needs. So it's a exciting day, exciting opportunity taking place, and we're glad to be there. It was hard to be there. Manila is the second most concentrated population in the world, city, that is, and dense population. And I was suffocated. I couldn't believe the emotional inability I had to manage all of that crowd. But fortunately, I didn't have to drive. They have 3 lanes of traffic and 5 cars drive side by side in it. It's not real dangerous though, because they average about 1.5 miles an hour or less from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. I'm looking out my hotel window and I'm just like, it's like you're at a stoplight the whole day and just inch forward. And when you're in the 5th lane over here and you want to get in the 1st lane, you just turn your car and you just drive sideways and everybody gets out of your way. And almost no horn honking. But the worst part, there's a little bit of space around you and motorcycles swarm. They're driving through it sideways. It's an amazing situation, amazing place. But we're grateful to be there, and we need to be going back to Korea as well. One of the things on the bottom of the screen, you see the NCAA just kind of giving a clear update. Since we moved here in 2012, NCAA has been going under some significant changes in how they handle homeschoolers. And as of today, they've launched a secondary program where they're authorizing what they call umbrella schools. And Walkersville is one of their authorized umbrella schools. So when you get your diploma from Walkersville, then our checkoff of your diploma is being used by the NCAA as a course checkoff for homeschool students. The primary requirement of the NCAA is every course a student takes has to be approved by the NCAA. If you're in a classroom environment, then you have one classroom course that's kept on file, that is taught, that's approved, and students taking that course have taken approved courses. When you're a homeschool family, every single course that you take has to be validated in the fashion that we actually validate. Now we've been doing this with them for years and years, but they've changed the whole nature of the structure. So we are officially an umbrella school, and that the status of being an academic institution as we originally had in the beginning, that status has been removed from us. In order to do that, we would actually have to have a on-site campus with each of our courses being approved by the NCAA. Just so you understand, it's not punitive to homeschoolers to have each course verified. It's just that every student, whether you're in public or private school or homeschool, every course has to be validated by the NCAA. And the reason is because of big money in sports. That's all it amounts to. So we're grateful to have gotten through the process. Most of our NCAA students, though, come from the Philippines. So we've not had too many on the American side in terms of students getting into sports, but it's one of the goals of the Philippine education system. Modeling. So again, we're going to be differentiating some of our ministry with respects to affiliate programs and branch academies overseas as well. But we have opened up a new school in the DR Republic of Congo, and it's an interesting story. The missionary couple lived in Baltimore. The husband is a native of the DR Republic of Congo, and they met over here, had ministry in a church for a while, and then they were sent back to the Congo for church planting ministry. But they're a homeschool family, and it's a real cool story how the mom was saved, was part of a church of homeschool families, and she was invited in to do babysitting for different homeschool families, and it was her first exposure to family in her life, and she had this huge ambition to be married and be a homeschool mom. So she homeschooled for about 10 years, but they moved over to the Congo when it was homeschooling. And what happens when you're successful in education in Congo, you attract people. So they've they're continuing homeschooling, but they're homeschooling 100 children, and it's now called a school. So they're working with us in terms of having basic academic credentialing of their courses and how that gets handled, and they'll be maintaining that relationship with us, though they won't. It'll probably be the first institution where we don't actually have homeschool students enrolled in one of our schools. We continue to try to maintain a strong relationship with the Board of Education, and I would ask you to pray regarding that as it comes up. Last year was so exciting to have the regulations that related to homeschooling, dealt with in such a way that they were, seeking out our input and what have you. Technically speaking, the curriculum, the directives for curriculum don't directly affect homeschoolers per se yet, but the reality is the long-term effect is it's going to be there. It's going to be there, especially once you start putting into testing. So just pray for our continued capacity. Remember the statement, and there arose a Pharaoh that knew not Joseph? So Dave Smith and I were having breakfast yesterday with Brad, and we've been involved together in MYTC and the homeschool thing from the very beginning. And he announced, I turned 70 this year, and I'm like, if you're turning 70, I can't be too far behind. So we've been blessed with many, many years of service and care in the community, but all the contacts and all the people that we know at the Department of Education, they're retiring one by one, and so it's important for us to attempt to meet new pharaohs that will have some capacity to connect with. And so these are just some of the specific issues. You have the document in your possession. So we're going to need to bring Becky up at this time. And Becky, it's your turn to